how often these butterflies, like the population size throughout the year for 4 of our monitoring sites. What was fixed is the onset of the July flight period is about 60 days after the onset of the first flight period. What we also found is we started looking at these the butterfly flight periods. We started to get a real good idea of when the butterflies start, and we were able to predict the emergence and the peak abundance of the butterflies really well. And I'm still impressed by this. My advisor normally crank out the data, and it's always like between like 1 or 2 days that he make that it's off, which I think it's pretty awesome. So what you do is it's growing degree days, and what you do is you start in March, which is essentially what they consider the start of the growth period for the plant. You take the maximum and the minimum temperature of every day, the range of the temperatures, and you average it, and then you sum those. You sum those, and essentially, as you each day is now the sum of the previous. Each point is the sum of the previous days, and just below 1,984 or something is normally your first observation, your emergence of your first flight period, and your peak abundance is around just 1,224 or something is your peak abundance. And then the way to estimate, figure out when the second flight period starts is about 60 days after the start of the first flight period. Yes.
This is tremendously regular. Did you have variations in the actual weather between these 3 years?
So yeah, you can see there's May 20th, May the 15th, and May the 26th. So there's
some variation.
There's definite variation, and like if you look at the previous, you can see the variation is like this. Like here, it's like more towards early July. There's one that starts towards the end of July, so there's definite massive variation.
It is somewhat dependent on the weather, but I guess that the growth of caterpillars also depend on the photo period too, so which wouldn't change.
It's the weather. So essentially what happens is that like if you are going to have a colder year, like this graph will just take a bit, will go slower up, and you can think imagine another graph here for a slow year, and like oops, June the 15th is your next flight period. So did I explain that well?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I thought that was pretty awesome. And this I don't know the data here, but there's also you can use this to essentially figure out what climate change is going to do with the butterfly emergence, and how that can completely, like if you have a sedge that just you can get a disconnection between when the plants are there and when the butterflies are there and things like that. So I thought this was pretty cool. So sorry, I had the choice to either put in one of these graphs or to put all of them on. I think I just put all of them on. This is the population index every time, and here's the year from 2002 to 2011, which is the years so that we've done our monitoring. And the take-home message of this slide is the butterfly is in trouble. So apart from this bonanza year we had here, like all these trends are essentially going down. There's a population that went extinct. This is all 6 the sites that we've monitoring or that we've monitored. We still go there, but we don't see butterflies anymore. There's only one site that's still holding on, and these now for 4 years I've gone out in the field every day during the flight period, and well, I've given up. It's just I don't think there's other sites for the butterfly outside the impact area. We'll get to the impact area in a moment. So you would think the butterfly is in trouble if you outside the impact area for graph. If you do, I just did a quick and dirty population viability analysis, and what you essentially have here is year into the future and the probability of extinction. The blue line is the lines are what you call extinction threshold. The blue line is, say a population is 2 individuals is extinct, and you guys know you need more than 2 individuals to hold up a population. They need to find each other, they need to be in the same place, they need to fly at the same time. So I also made extinction threshold of 50 butterflies, which like you can 50 butterflies is better, you have a better chance of that a butterfly is not really functioning extinct. And you can see here that like around 10 years the butterfly, there's a really good chance that this butterfly is extinct if the current trends continue. And here's the projected population size, here's the probability of extinction within 50 years. And once again, you can get an idea that like this is a proportion, so with like there's about a 20% chance or a 40% chance for the population to go extinct if the population size is 10,000. So we're far away from 10,000. You get an idea. There's a really good chance this butterfly will go extinct.
General studies or just for this?
This is this butterfly. It's St. Francis Satyr viability analysis, and this is for all colonies. Obviously, some of the colonies are extinct already. So this is where. So that's the first part of the lab's research, and the second part is this. We need to figure out how these butterflies disperse before we can start working on reintroductions. How we did the dispersal studies is we looked at dispersal within and between habitats. Within habitats is essentially what they call triangulation. You have two observers standing different. There's another observer standing at different ends of this transect, and then what they do is they follow a butterfly, and they for each move they get a length with these rangefinders or data scopes, and they also get an angle, and using that, how do you pronounce it, Pythagorean? Pythagorean. Yeah. Anybody guess my accent yet?
Yes.
so using the length between the two observers and the angle, you can essentially you can pinpoint the position of the butterfly, and using that, and if you have a lot of points, you can obviously really track the movement of the butterfly well. And what we found is, firstly, we did a few experiments, and we looked at how the butterfly move in different habitats, because just to figure out how they would disperse. Essentially, you can see that in open and upland habitat, which is where the butterfly really don't want to be in, this is not habitat, they move distance. This is a proportion of the moves, and this is a movement distance. And you can just see this butterfly really move far when they in these unsuitable habitats. And when you get to riparian habitat, the wetland habitat this is an open wetland, and you can still see they still far moves that's pretty far, but they're starting to settle down. And then once you get to the early successional habitats, you can see how they just settle down. It's just like, I want to be here, I don't want to fly anywhere else. We've also done some studies between habitats, and what happened here is the probability of habitat entry. What we've done is we release butterflies at the border of where two habitats come together, and we looked at which direction the butterfly would fly, if it would fly towards a wetland or a riparian area if you have that border. And this is a motility, which is this previous slide, essentially the distance of movement between per 5 second interval. And we saw that essentially open fields, probability of having these butterflies, if you release it at the end, at the border of an open field and anything else, these butterflies do not like open fields, and they really like riparian areas. And you can also see that there's a direct cause where they settle down in riparian areas. They choose to go in there, and they also choose to and they're happy, so it's like a sedentary butterfly. They just go and sit on their leaves and do their thing, wait for a female to fly past or something like that. So we also looked at the mark recapture studies. We looked at every time we caught a butterfly, we marked at where we saw the butterflies, and of 726 captures, essentially, this is just for one site, but it gives you an idea. The trend is the same everywhere, where the number of captures and the distance that they moved from that original capture, and 75% of the captures over the entire site were within 25 meters of the marking locations. Like these butterflies live for 4 or 5 days. They don't move around. 17% move, you guys can less than 50 meters, and the 50 meters essentially they stay within the colony. That's that's almost 97% of the butterflies stuck within the colony. They really don't move around. And then there's 3 dispersals between the colony, but it's in a single stream. And these 3 dispersals were really they were close to one another, 350 meters away. And then there's 2 dispersals that were between colonies within the same watershed. Essentially, you have a branch, the one butterfly is in one end, and it just moved to the other end. You obviously we won't know if it followed the stream or if it flew straight. But there were some movement between colonies, but not much. And then obviously we also, while we spent almost every day during the butterfly's flight period, there's a crew of, it ranged between, I think, between 6 and 10 people. That's the whole time in the field looking for these butterflies. And you're going to see butterflies outside areas that we know. And looking at that 23 observations, we saw 500 meters from known locations. So, and then up to one observation that we saw 2,600 meters from known colonies, which is, I make the point they're known colonies because there might be colonies. At this stage there were colonies in the impact area that we didn't know about. So essentially the take-home message is these butterflies dispersal is really rare. So colonization might be more likely in a stream in the similar watershed, which is what that 2006 that between colony dispersal that we saw. That's more likely, but one of the bigger problems is that with no beavers and no activities, these sites are not the remaining sites or the sites that currently at the on Fort Bragg is really not close to each other. So colonization for a sedentary butterfly like the Miami blue, St. Francis Satyr, is just really rare. Everybody following me? Not struggling with my accent or anything? So, pardon?
You could slow down a little.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's why I brought my girlfriend tracking the web. So essentially these butterflies, the chances of, you see one individual here and there, and you really, to get a population going, you need a few individuals. And so while the dispersal might be every now and again, colonization of a site is going to be really unlikely for this butterfly. So to ensure continued persistence of the St. Francis Satyr, it's going to require reintroductions, and this is our newest work. And essentially to do a reintroduction, there's already not a lot of butterflies in the on Fort Bragg, on the known sites. So you don't want to go and harvest the population to extinction to try and settle it elsewhere when your reintroduction intent might also fail. So the best way to do this is captive rearing, to get a lot of eggs, and instead of them being subjected to the forces of nature like predation and things, you just ensure that there's a higher success of butterflies reaching adulthood in these areas. And then the second point is identify suitable habitat. You got to know where you want to reintroduce these butterflies. And if you have a lot of sites that you identify as reintroduction sites, you got to somehow prioritize those reintroduction sites. So how we do the captive rearing is, these are we now have a greenhouse where we do the reintroductions, but this is just to get started. We use these this is the oviposition chamber. I played too much with this. This is your oviposition chambers. Essentially, what we do is we catch a butterfly female in the wild. Those are the only 2 oviposition chambers we have. We never have a female butterfly, more than 2 females at a time in the oviposition chambers, and we never keep them for more than one night in these oviposition chambers, just to let them lay the eggs, and we release them again. Once we got the eggs, we start putting them in these growth chambers, which is they call it mesh net castle, which is a standard way of allowing the eggs to hatch and the caterpillars to raise. Essentially, what happens, you have a part, you put a sedge in there, and you just put this cheesecloth over to the